If claims made through Russian state media are to be believed, and one should always view them with a certain amount of skepticism, the country's upcoming Tu-160 M2 Blackjack bomber will have significantly improved defensive countermeasures, as well as updated avionics and mission systems. If the systems do make it into service on the new aircraft, the same equipment, or variants thereof, could make it onto the still unseen PAC-DA long-range bomber. On June 14, 2017, state-run media outlet TASS ran a story on the topic centered on an interview with Vladimir Mikheyev, the first deputy CEO of Radio Electronic Technologies Group, also known as Concern Radio Electronic Technologies or by its Russian acronym CRET. The state-owned company produces a variety of products for civilian and military applications, including radios, navigation systems, radars, and intelligence gathering equipment. The Tu-160 minutes 2 seconds will have a principally new defensive aid system which is being developed as part of a new R&D effort, Mikheyev said. It will protect against all possible types of missiles. The system will detect targets at a distance of several hundred kilometers. The Tu-160, which the Russians call Belyi Lebed or White Swan, is the country's largest bomber and has a top speed, at full afterburner, of over Mach 2. A swing-wing design visually similar to the U.S. Air Force's B-1 the four-engine aircraft is more comparable in overall size to the abortive XP-70 Valkyrie. Though the prototype first flew in 1981, the Tu-160 didn't see combat until 2015, when the Kremlin employed them to attack targets in Syria via cruise missile launches. Vitaly Kuzmin. In 2014, the Russian military began receiving the first updated Tu-160MS with improved avionics and mission systems. Now, the Kremlin wants to restart the production line and buy all new M2 versions with the additional internal updates from firms like CRET, along with new engines and other more significant external modifications to improve fuel efficiency and overall range. As of June 2017, Moscow hoped to get the first of these bombers into service by 2021. The executive did not offer any additional details on how the new system or systems for the bombers might defeat incoming threats. TASS did add a definition for defense system that covered detecting and classifying incoming weapons, as well as destroying them. It is possible and perhaps likely that he could have been referring to a completely new suite of equipment that included optical, infrared, and radar-linked early warning sensors along with jamming gear, lasers able to deflect certain types of missiles, and traditional dispensers loaded with flares and chaff. Many of these types of systems, such as direction infrared countermeasures, already exist, but CRET could improve any or all of them by extending the range at which they first spot possible dangers, as Mikheyev alluded to, as well as how fast and actively defenses respond to the threat. The gear could involve more revolutionary technology, such as electrically powered solid-state lasers or other systems that actually knock down incoming missiles. Another option might be to use highly focused beams of electromagnetic radiation to confuse or even destroy targeting radars or the seekers inside individual weapons. A conformal active electronically scanned radar assay could do double duty in this role, and Russia has already begun flying conformal arrays on their T-50 fighter jet prototypes. USAF Northrop Grumman. The U.S. military is already working on a number of similar projects, though it remains tight-lipped about most of them. One of the most analogous, at least from what we know, is the Air Force Research Laboratory's AFRL Advanced Technology Demonstration known by the forced acronym SHIELD, which stands for Self-Protect High Energy Laser Demonstrator. Earlier in 2017, we received briefings through the Freedom of Information Act regarding this and related programs that were heavily redacted and devoid of almost any real detail. We've included one of the briefing slides so you can see for yourself. The censored cited a statute, 10 U.S.C. Section 130, which specifically exempts information from release if the U.S. government reasonably believes it provides enough detail on a sensitive technology for someone to reverse engineer or similarly use it for their own purposes. USAF via FOIA is clear is that the U.S. Air Force is looking for a podded, turreted laser for aircraft that can shoot down threatening projectiles. Beyond that, it needs to have the necessary equipment project and aim the beam, keep it stable, and make sure everything stays cool enough for multiple shots in a relatively short amount of time, as well as a power source to run all those components. In 2014, an interesting partnership between the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, AFRL, Lockheed Martin, and Notre Dame University demonstrated a beam control turret that fits the description.
With the United States and North Korea continuing their standoff over Pyongyang's arsenal of ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons program, the threat of war looms on the Korean peninsula. Indeed, if there's a war with North Korea, it is likely to be one of the most savage conflicts in the history of war, with nuclear, chemical and potentially even biological weapons being unleashed. As such, U.S. forces in the region have to be ready to fight in contaminated areas. To prepare for such an eventuality, U.S. Marines from Marine Fighter Attack Squadron 121, stationed at Iwakuni, Japan trained to refuel their Lockheed Martin F-35B Joint Strike Fighters while wearing mission-oriented protective posture MOP Level 4 gear. What a war between NATO and Russia would look like. It's important to practice in MOP gear because the Marines don't get many opportunities to wear this on a daily basis, so in the instance where they do have to wear MOP gear in a real-life scenario, it's not going to be a shock or surprise to them of how they are going to operate. Staff Sergeant Martin Aldrete, a maintenance controller with VMFA 121, said in a U.S. Pacific Command release. Training while wearing the MOP gear allows the Marines to launch and recover their F-35Bs while under attack from chemical and biological weapons or help to survive the fallout from a nuclear attack. It might be a skill that those troops could have to exercise in the real world soon if leaders in Washington don't get a handle on the North Korean standoff. What a war between America and China would look like. As such, operating under fire from chemical weapons or having a nuclear weapon explode at some distance from the base is not an abstract concept. Tensions are high with North Korea, and in the event of a war, Pyongyang might choose to launch its nuclear weapons. A large American air base is a logical target for a North Korean chemical or nuclear attack. What a war between China and Japan would look like. However, Defense Secretary Jim Mattis seems to believe that diplomacy can avert a potential war with North Korea. There may be opportunity for talks, if they stop their shooting missiles, stop developing nukes, stop building more nukes. We can talk, Mattis said en route to Colorado Springs, Colorado. Mattis explained that the Trump administration is focused on resolving the North Korea crisis peacefully. We are being led right now, diplomatically, Mattis said. Everything we do is designed, the sanctions, the United Nations Security Council, 2 resolutions, unanimous resolutions, more economic sanctions, diplomatic persona non grata from a number of nations around the world. It's all designed to bring diplomatic and economic pressure on North Korea to change its course. But while the Trump administration might hope that North Korea changes course, it is very unlikely that North Korea will ever give up its nuclear weapons. Pyongyang sees nuclear weapons as the ultimate guarantor of the Kim regime's survival. Thus, especially after the United States helped to overthrow Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi in 2011 despite offering Libya security guarantees in exchange for giving up its program to develop weapons of mass destruction, North Korea is not likely to repeat that mistake. Ultimately, the United States will likely have to accept a nuclear-armed North Korea and adopt a deterrence posture. Dave Majumdar is the defense editor for the National Interest. You can follow him on Twitter at Dave Majumdar.
Russia's United Aircraft Corporation, or UAC, has rolled out the first prototype of its upgraded Tu-160M2 Blackjack at its plant in Kazan. The Russian Air Force insists that this design will be a key component of the country's strategic, nuclear-capable bomber force, along with its 295 B.o.mbers, but persistent budget shortfalls, limited industrial capacity, and other issues could easily stymie the modernization program. On November 16, 2017, the same day as the rollout, Russia's Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Rogozin announced that flight tests of the aircraft would begin in 2018, low-rate production would start a year later, and serial deliveries would start in 2023. At that point, UAC hopes to be delivering 2 or 3 to 160 minutes 2 seconds each year. In 2015, the Kremlin first announced the project, which it said would involve restarting the Blackjack production line. Everything is fine, just perfect, Russian President Vladimir Putin said upon getting the update on the program from Rogozin, according to state-run media outlet TASS. I congratulate the aircraft builders and I think we will deliver good news to the Defense Ministry. We still don't know the complete scope of the Tu-160M2's improvements over the previous Tu-160M upgrade, which UAC first delivered to the Russian Air Force in 2014. In the past, Russian officials have stated the M2 aircraft would share approximately 60% of their components with the small fleet of original Tu-160 Blackjack bombers. It's also not clear whether or not the M2s will be truly new production planes. UAC acknowledges that the initial prototype is a conversion of an existing airframe, but the Russian military says it wants at least 50 of the bombers and only has 16 Tu-160Ms in total. Based on the images UAC released of the first prototype, it appears that much of the airframe remains unchanged from its original swing wing design. The development of the Soviet-era Tu-160, which the Russians nicknamed the Belyi Lebed or White Swan, began in the 1970s and it first flew in 1981. The aircraft did not see combat until 2015, when Russian crews first fired air-launched cruise missiles at targets in Syria. The M2s will reportedly have new NK-3202 series engines, also known as the NK-32 Tier 2. The original low-bypass NK-32 is already among the most power turbofans ever built, with each generating approximately 55,000 pounds of thrust in afterburner at its maximum setting. By comparison, the General Electric F-101s on the U.S. Air Force's B-1 bomber have an output of just under 31,000 pounds at full afterburner. The Tu-160 is significantly larger than the B-1 too, though. Engine maker United Engine Corporation UAC has said the O2 series is significantly more efficient and will make the Tu-160M2 less thirsty than its predecessor, and in doing so it will reportedly add more than 600 miles to the jet's operational range. These engines, or another variant thereof, are also supposedly going to be used on Russia's PAK-DA stealth bomber project. Tests of the engines began in October 2017, but it is not clear if the initial M2 prototype has them installed. In addition, Russian officials say the aircraft will feature an entirely new suite of avionics, expanding on the substantial improvements reportedly found on the Tu-160M. The M models already featured a number of enhancements in this regard, but UAC has hinted at the possibility that the M2 will have a fully digital glass cockpit. Alex Beltyukov via Wikimedia. In June 2017, Vladimir Mikheyev, the first deputy CEO of Radio Electronic Technologies Group, also known as Concern Radio Electronic Technologies or by its Russian acronym CRET, told TASS that the Tu-160M2 would carry a variety of new electronic systems. The state-operated firm builds radios, navigation systems, radars, and intelligence-gathering equipment for civil and military customers. Mikheyev said that the new Blackjacks would have, among other things, improved inertial navigation, satellite navigation, and astronavigation equipment. The latter system was particularly notable as it offered an important backup in the event that the navigation satellite constellation, likely Russia's GLONASS GPS equivalent satellite network, failed or suffered an attack. The Russian military has been actively developing its own GPS jamming and spoofing systems, as well as anti-satellite weapons, and would be well aware of the potential threat. According to Russian media reports, the Tu-160 minutes 2 seconds will have a fast-scanning active electronically scanned array (ESA) radar. This will allow crews to detect targets and potential threats at longer ranges and with greater precision. Perhaps more importantly,